This video was shot with the aspect ratio of you being a toddler and me being a very tall person looking down on you. Don't look into that too far. But hey, listen, the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, it's been crazy for a few weeks, but episode 5, Truth, got real nuts, especially John Walker. Now, by the time this review comes out, obviously the final episode has aired. I will be reviewing that later this week as well. I guess this week is starting Sunday when this should be going up. I have both one, fallen behind on these, and two, tried to not, I guess, review them immediately. I wanted to give some of you guys who are watching this a chance to watch it. And the last couple episodes, those of you who are trying to catch up, I wanted to give you a chance to catch up. I am not a channel that, runs from anything that looks like a spoiler. But when it's something new that I'm excited about, and I know some of you are, I try not to purposely shove any spoilers in your face before it's a little older, or at least a few days old or something. But this episode of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier was crazy. I absolutely loved it. Now, starting out, I was honestly going into it unsure of how they were going to handle the fallout with John Walker, basically just offing a dude in front of a ton of onlookers. I didn't really know, would the U.S. government cover it up? Would they, I guess discharge him? What would they do? Would Bucky and Falcon go after him immediately? And it picks up like right there. Like John runs off and they corner him in a warehouse and they all fight. And what's crazy about this scene is that it shows just how much John has become obsessed with the shield, and with being Captain America, and less with the responsibilities of it, but almost more like the title of I get to be Captain America. It's me. I'm Captain America. You can't be him. It's me. There's an obsession there too, especially when they try and tell him, you just made a mistake. It's bad, but like just calm down, and go home. And it's like he was about to, and then they mention, just give us the shield, and he's like, oh, that's what this is about. You just want the shield. He's gone off the deep end in terms of this role, in terms of being Captain America. Wyatt Russell has played this off fantastically. I actually recently watched a short interview with him where he talked about just how hard it was to actually emote in the entire, facial cowl, where he has this helmet on that's covering, a big portion of his face, and he has to display these emotions. And I think he's done a fantastic job. We really saw it in this opening fight in the warehouse between Bucky, Sam, and John. He's just crazy. He's so angry. Lamar's dead. He's in a really bad place, and he just lets go. I mean, there's even a scene where he gets Falcon on the ground, rips his wings off, and he's about to beat his face or chest in too with the shield, basically the same way he did last episode. And obviously Bucky prevents it, and Sam and Bucky are able to beat John. In the end, it's Sam obviously weakens him, but Sam's not a super soldier, and his wings were destroyed at this point. And Bucky's able to finish him off. But there's a lot of interesting character elements in this too going in. Not to just talk about John the whole time, but when he goes back and he's getting reprimanded by the senators, it's really interesting too, because I've seen a lot of people say, like, are we supposed to feel bad for John? I don't feel bad for him. But then they feel bad for Carly, which is interesting to me. These are both characters who are doing really, really messed up things for the greater good, or whatever they want to justify it as. Carly has murdered quite a few people, some of whom, actually most of whom, had nothing to do with the decision making on anything that would have hurt her or her fellow flag smashers. Yet people in the story are expected to feel sorry for her. People within the writing are expected to feel sorry for her, right? Because you understand her reasoning. The thing with John that sucks is that even though his reasoning isn't okay, right? To retaliate, to kill someone in retaliation, not really for justice, but just because they hurt him. Even though that's not okay, you can still understand it, and you can understand why he did what he did with how he was feeling. The thing with him going back and facing the U.S. government's jurisdiction over his title and all this is they essentially dishonorably discharged him. They borderline court-martialed him, but they really didn't on that one. They took the title from him. They took his severance pay and like his retirement and everything. I don't know what they expected him to do, but it was basically just a giant F off from the government to him because he embarrassed them. It's pretty interesting, especially when you look at the things like I always forget her name, but essentially who is Madam Hydra showing up and pointing out that the U.S. government doesn't even own that shield anyway. It's not technically theirs. It's past ownership a lot, and not to mention that the one that's currently in this timeline is not even from it. It's not the one that they would have commissioned through Stark regardless. It would be a different version from a different timeline. But I digress. John points out, you guys made me. I've always followed your mandates. I did everything you asked, and this is how you repay me. And they basically say, we don't care. Which I think further alienates and isolates this dude who has given his entire life to the military, and then he just kind of gets kicked out. It's interesting. It's very interesting how they wrote this, especially with the post-credit scene with his character, just to kind of finish up talking about him, how, you see him in the end, because he had, basically yelled at the senators, I am Captain America. Basically, like, it doesn't matter if you take it away from me or not, I still am. Because, now he's a super soldier. It's not just a title. But, in the end, he's making his own shield, which is obviously most likely just metal, like it is in the comics a lot of times, not vibranium for U.S. Agent. And he's going to sort of do his own thing. It looks like he's being set up either for the Thunderbolts or the Dark Avengers. And either way, that project looks very interesting depending on what comes of it, especially if we see characters reintroduced to the MCU from the past, like Abomination or anyone like that could stand in for Hulk. There's a lot of different characters that could be put in Thunderbolts or Dark Avengers. I think Dark Avengers as a title needs some work. It's needlessly edgy and only worked in the comics, but I'm interested. I'm very interested. Sam in this episode goes through a lot of development on his own, going back to the boat, going back to his family, working on things. We see Bucky and Sam's friendship develop even more in this, which to me is really the reason why I watched the show in the first place, was to see Bucky and Sam's friendship develop. To see that relationship sort of form, because I always found that to be a fascinating dichotomy between these two friends. You have Bucky, whose best friend was, Steve, and you have Sam, who in a lot of ways his best friend was Steve in modern day, and their friend is gone, whether he's dead or not, we don't know, since there's talks apparently of a Chris Evans return to the MCU, as unnecessary as that may be, but hopefully that's good, whatever that is. But these two characters who have kind of ended up alone in a lot of ways, finding each other and becoming friends and working together to essentially make the world a better place. I think that that's really interesting and cool. And the way they did it was well written. I think that having Bucky show up, to kind of just drop something off, and then he stays to help Sam and he keeps helping Sam. It's very much a rhyme and repeat of what happened earlier on in the series with Bucky finding Sam, and going with him to fight the Flag Smashers in the first place and all this stuff. I think that they've done a very good job tying this all together. I think that this episode was probably one of the heaviest with Isaiah. Sam going to meet Isaiah again with the shield and talking to him, and Isaiah basically saying, like, nobody like us, no black person would want to be Captain America. It's like an embarrassment. Like, why would you even consider it? That kind of thing, based off everything he went through. Well, it's very interesting. I was talking to Nate about this too, about this episode, and the polar opposite worldview points of Isaiah and Sam really shine through here. You have Isaiah, right? This is a black man who served his country. He did disobey military orders, right, which could lead to a court-martial, but he did it the same way Steve did. Steve was ordered, don't go anywhere near that base, don't help your friends. He He rescued Bucky and everybody from Hydra, right? He disobeyed orders and he was basically rewarded as a hero. Isaiah did essentially the same thing, years later, and he was branded as almost a traitor. He was locked in prison. He was experimented on. They took his blood a ton, and they treated him like government property until he was able to fake his own death and escape. They never even let him out, and they probably never would have. Whereas Sam, he has grown up in a world where, yes, some things are hard, and yes, there still are these things, right? Like what we saw with the whole police, stereotyping, all that kind of stuff in the world. But it's not quite the same as it was. It's like things are better. They're not perfect, but they're better. And so Sam's viewpoint is very different from Isaiah's. Isaiah's is, you don't need to carry that white man's shield. You don't owe him anything. And Sam's is, well, it's not really about that, and it's not about how bad you had it. It's about making the world a better place and not just laying down angry and accepting it. He even has a quote. He talks about what would be the point of all the suffering and, fighting if he didn't keep fighting to do the right thing, which I think is very interesting. And I think that line on its own shows that Sam is worthy of the mantle of Captain America and the shield. And I think that a lot of people have gotten some of the main themes of this story wrong. This story is not like a super political, preachy story. This is not a story to victimize Sam. This is not a story to say that the Falcon wasn't a good enough hero without becoming Captain America. I think they proved that when they showed that, he didn't want the serum, that he could do it without that, with training and all this stuff. The point of the show was sort of the point of the series was to display how Sam was worthy of the shield, how he got from feeling like he wasn't to probably still feeling like he isn't, but, hitting a point where he can embrace that and moving on, and how him and Bucky sort of come together as friends. I think this episode was fantastic. I look forward to watching the finale. I guess by the time this goes up, I will have, but I will review it later this week. So let me know what you think in those comments down below. Were you a fan of this episode? What did you think of the heavy-hitting themes? What were your thoughts on what happened with John, with Sam, with Bucky, Carly, all these different people, and where do you think it's going to end up? Or I suppose if you already watched it, you already know, but what were your thoughts? Let me know. If you enjoyed this, please be sure to leave a like, subscribe for more content down below. I appreciate it very much. We have all our links down in the description. As always, we've got our official Etsy shop, where now my wife, Jill, has been making, because we actually did get married before this, has been making all kinds of stuff, different bracelets and necklaces now, earrings, all kinds of stuff. Mother's Day is coming up. Maybe you have a girlfriend that you call mommy, anything like that, that you want to maybe buy or something. That's fantastic. Maybe there is a very confident young man in your life who would also want to rock one of my bracelets that I have personally designed, channel merch. It is down there as well, because I've done a couple too. We've also got the Patreon, the Let's Play channel where we hang out podcast style and play through games, and everything else. We'll see you in the next one. Have a fantastic day. And as always, everybody, stay shway.